just get rid of them then?
Yeah.
Because
I get it.
we just brought his stuff in and we got all the wet stuff, so.
It's all right.
You can have them stand behind her. Do you want any of those stands like Troy's there? Council.
Sure.
Okay.
Come on, man.
Do you guys want to stand back?
Introduce you to Secretary Marshall Jones. You want to just put that one there?
I set that there.
Sure. Wherever you like to put it.
Thank you.
All right. Are we all set? Everybody's good? Awesome. Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for attending this press conference that we unfortunately had to call this afternoon. This is not necessarily something that I enjoy doing. Unfortunately, because of my position, I've been entailed to do so. I appreciate all of your time and effort to be here with us today. South Bend Fire Department responded to a devastating residential fire last night. In the early evening hours of January 21st, 2024, South Bend Fire Department responded to a residential fire at 222 North LaPorte Avenue. Upon arrival, the first responding company, Engine 2, was met with intense flames engulfing both the first and second floors of the structure. Demonstrating exceptional bravery and skill, the crew of Engine 2 initiated a rapid attack, advancing to the heart of the blaze. Despite the challenging conditions, which we all know at this particular time of the year, the inclement weather, the brutal winds that has been raging through our area for the last few days, they successfully managed to suppress a significant portion of the fire on the first floor before moving to the second floor, where multiple victims were reported to be trapped. And I'll get more into that in a few. Continuing their efforts amidst overwhelming heat and smoke, the firefighters from Engine 2 located and rescued 2 individuals, handing them over to additional crews upon their arrival. In total, 6 victims were extracted from the fire. Tragically, 5 of these individuals, all children, would later be pronounced deceased. 1 survivor was urgently transported to Memorial Hospital and later airlifted to a specialized pediatric burn center in Indianapolis for further treatment. While this incident casts a shadow of sorrow over our community, particularly due to the loss of young lives, it is also a poignant reminder of the courage and dedication displayed by the members of the South Bend Fire Department. I couldn't be more proud of our men and women for doing what they do and what their calling is every day. Everybody knows we are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But none of us could have even imagined what yesterday entailed. The firefighters of Engine 2, in their unyielding commitment to protect and serve, exhibited a profound disregard for their own safety in the face of extreme danger. Their actions reflect the highest ideals of selflessness and a citizen's first ethos, characteristics emblematic of the bravery inherent in our city's first responders. As we mourn the lives lost, and please be sensitive to the family that sustained that loss, we'd also like to extend our deepest sympathies not only to that particular family of those individuals, but also to the families of our firefighters who, I'm sure, hearing some of the reports of this incident, were concerned about their family members. South Bend Fire Department is committed to providing support to these families during this difficult time and is working closely with local and state authorities to investigate the cause of this fire. We are all caring for one of our firefighters who fell through the second floor onto the first floor. He was transported to a local hospital for treatment. He is now recovering at home and expected to recover and return to work in the near future. In closing, I urge the community to join us in honoring the memory of the young lives lost and in recognizing the heroic efforts of our firefighters who without hesitation risked everything in their attempt to save South Bend Zone. I would like to remind all residents to test their smoke alarms, and not with an indication that that had anything to do with this particular incident, but as a preventative measure for allowing some type of pre-warning to hopefully avoid this type of incident from happening from this point forward. The department collaborates closely with the American Red Cross, installing 3 smoke alarms daily to the residents of the city of South Bend, free at no cost. I repeat, free at no cost. We have technicians that are more than willing to go out and install if you was to call and you needed a working smoke detector. We also have our public education and public information office that's available to take those calls and actually be able to get someone out to do that installation, as well as your fire stations wherever you may live in the city. Those crews are more than ready, able, and willing to come to your homes to make sure that you have a working smoke alarm and to make sure that it is installed properly and adequately for your safety. I have with me the Mayor, James Mueller, for the City of South Bend, who's going to say a few words, followed by Indiana State Fire Marshal Steve Jones, who have come personally to assist us, as well as lending several of his investigators from the state of Indiana to help us through this. Mayor?
Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you for joining us today. Of course, as Chief mentioned, this is the most difficult part of my job, just as it's the most difficult part of his job, where there are children in our community that we're unable to keep safe and protect them from harm. This incident last night was a horrific tragedy in our community. We know this is rippling across the entire community today and will for some time. So our heartfelt condolences and prayers are with the family and the rest of our community that are going through this mourning process. And one of the challenging parts is, of course, everyone wants answers. We want to know, how could this happen in 2024? Tragic fires were commonplace 100 years or so ago, but we have modern building codes. We have modern fire service that most of the time they get to come back from a fire as a hero. They've saved the folks that were in harm's way, and they've put out the fire with no losses of life. And we've had a tough weekend this weekend, not just the horrific tragedy last night, but one on Saturday as well. And this is something that we will continue to do. There's a reason why fires used to be a more common tragedy, and now they're far less common, because we've been able to do things together to get ahead of these kind of tragedies and prevent them from ever happening in the first place. And so we will look to find answers in the days ahead and figure out how do we make sure this never happens again in South Bend or any community in our country. So that's, I wish we had more answers to share with you right now, but we'll let the investigators continue. We'll figure that out, and then we'll figure out how we can work to prevent these from happening in the future. But nevertheless, our hearts and prayers are with the family and the community. We know this is a very difficult time, and it's just it's hard to believe. We're still having a hard time processing that this is happening in 2024. And now I'll turn it over to our State Fire Marshal, Steve Jones.
Hello, I'm Steve Jones, State Fire Marshal for the state of Indiana. Yesterday evening, our agency received a call from South Bend Fire to assist them for the origin and cause of the fire. The mission of the State Fire Marshal's office is to bring assets and people to help support the local fire service. So our investigators, along with South Bend fire investigators, are working to determine the cause of the fire, to understand what happened, so we can have a better understanding. Yesterday, when I heard the radio traffic, I had a knot in my stomach, because it's just so tragic. And then heard the radio traffic of the firefighter that fell through the floor. Again, it's very tragic. I appreciate the effort and the work that the fire department did here. The writing probably was on the wall before our fire engine pulled up, but they risked their lives a lot yesterday evening. So much so that they fell through the floor, you know, and that's dangerous stuff when that happens. Last year in the state of Indiana, we had 80 fire fatalities in the state of Indiana. My agency assists the fire service all across the state of Indiana to help support them in several different areas, but fire investigation is one where we have some technical equipment and we have some advanced fire investigators who help local fire service help determine the cause. We have a good relationship with South Bend. In this, again, we were on assisted just the other day, South Bend. But we work all over the state with different fire departments to determine the cause of origin of the fire. It's tragic. There's no other way to put it. It hurts the whole community. People who don't know the family, we're all affected by this. And I don't have any words to make it better. I just appreciate the mayor, the fire department, the law enforcement, South Bend law enforcement, because it's taking all of us working together to be able to get all the documentation and be able to investigate this so we can determine the cause of the fire and what happened here. So.
Thank you, Marshal Jones. Before I entertain questions, if anyone has any questions, again, I just want to specify how honored I am to be a part of the South Bend Fire Department of the city of South Bend and have been for the last 37 years. I'm honored because of what it stands for and the people that work within it. I can't say enough. I was out there last night, and I can't say enough of the efforts from everyone out there, not just all of the great members of the South Bend Fire Department, but the assistance we received from surrounding municipals. Everyone, I'm not going to be able to name every entity, but all of our surrounding entities either provided EMS assistance, fire crews were sent, as well as SBPD had their representatives there and their officers there assisting the best that they can. State Police was there assisting, and obviously from the Indiana State Fire Marshal's office, his investigators. We had a multitude of people that I am so appreciative of to collaborate with and say thank you. But obviously, our hearts are low and feeling very saddened right now. The one thing on the fire service that I can attest to is that we know how hard it is to lose anyone, because we do everything in our power to avoid it. But it even hurts even more so when it's someone who has just begun their time on this earth, not able to make conscientious decisions, which is where the adults we're supposed to help them with. But as part of our public education within the South Bend Fire Department, I am proud that we're not only trying to teach stop, drop, and roll. We're not trying to teach the young children to make sure if you see any lighting materials to get them to an adult. Those were the basics 60 years ago. Now we're teaching them, what's your plan in case there's a fire in your residence? What's your plan of egress? How are you going to get out? Have this conversation with your parents. Try to come up with a plan in case these things happen. Also, just teaching them what's available in your house that could cause something like this to happen, and how can you avoid or how can you prevent it. These honest conversations with adolescents and youth is what we need to have more of today. Not just giving them passing out a badge or passing out a hat or giving them crayons or coloring books. Those are all fun concepts, but we need to be realistic with them, and we need to educate and teach them so that they can help us to help them to not be in this situation again. So I implore all of us to do that same thing. I'm giving that same message, that we do our part to educating the public and educating our kids and our family members and teaching them how to possibly help themselves so that they can survive and thrive in case of a fire. Now, if you have any questions for myself, Mayor James, State Fire Marshal Jones, we'd be more than happy to entertain. Yes. We know that the children age ranged from 17 months to 11 years old, and the 11-year-old was the one that was flown to Indianapolis. There was an adult that gave us the information of how many people was in there. There was an adult there. The adult was able to get themselves out of the structure, but not after trying to make a valiant attempt at trying to help rescue the other individuals, the other children in there. But the heavy smoke, heavy fire was overcoming them. But at the same time, as far as we know, that adult did survive, but not sure of the extent of their injuries. To the best of my knowledge, he was. No, I don't. Not at this time. The investigators are still trying to accurately get the information so that it's not just broad perspective from whether it's neighbors or anyone else that might know of the individuals at that residence. We want to make sure that we're being accurate to making sure that providing that information as we get it. To the best of my knowledge, yes, it was. Yes, sir. Not sure at this particular time what was the primary area, just that it spread rapidly, but again, given the winter conditions and the wind, all it needs is a source. It's going to continue to burn. So not sure at this time, but it's an active investigation, and as we get more information, we will make sure we get it out to everyone. Yes.
There are multiple comments and things going around circulating about electrical issues that were involved in that house. Are you guys able to comment on that at all?
At this particular time, we are not. The investigators have not had enough time to accurately get in there and make any type of specification as far as where it was or what caused it. Well, I don't know that explicitly, but you know, I mean, you figured fire came in roughly around 6:30 p.m. Not too many people are in bed at that particular time, but that doesn't mean they weren't laying down. So I don't have that information.
Did the culprit help from inside the house, or was it neighbors or previous involved with the fire?
That we're not sure of, and we don't get that information. We are part of the dispatching center, and so dispatchers just tell us what the situation is and where the location is. We could care less who calls. We'd like for them to call as soon as possible. So as a message to the public, don't try to extinguish anything yourself or think that you can extinguish anything yourself. First and foremost, call 911, at least get us en route so that we can get there as soon as possible. Yes.
Can you go into detail about were they all in one room, kind of on the second floor, kind of about that interaction a little bit? Can you go into details?
Don't have that information at this particular time. Not sure.
In terms of your strategy when you're fighting a fire, you counter a building that there's like a lot of flames coming all over. If you were told that there's no inside the building, would firefighters have responded the same way? Would they go in and fight it that way, or is it a different scenario if there are people in the building versus not?
No, obviously the message of possible persons inside the structure is going to heighten us to want to respond more offensively. But again, that's the commanding officer's decision based on the conditions that they're recognizing. And if it's safe enough, we will risk a lot to save a lot every day of the week. But again, would you want to risk even our firefighters' lives if you knew for certain there was no one in there? Properties can be rebuilt. Lives can never be replaced. So yes, there's always that thought, but at the same time, if the commanding officer decides that yes, we can still get in there and do offensive strategy, then we're going to go in there and we're going to try to extinguish that fire to the best of our abilities every single time. Yes.
Can you talk about kind of the firefighters, I want to say in 7%,
Mhm.
kind of how they're handling any services that you all are providing, just those things that
And thank you for stating that. We have a peer support team with the South Bend Fire Department. Also, we have outside communities that also have peer support team leaders. And so we were fortunate. Last night, we had the team leader for our peer support group that was out there on the scene and coordinating his team members to different locations at the hospital, sending them to the hospital, just taking them over to different areas outside of the particular command center and making sure that our people knew that they were there and if they needed anything, and just letting them know at a later time that we were going to be sitting down with them and talking about these things, because this isn't something that we experience every day of the week. This is one of those occurrences that we hardly ever experience, but we understand that it's part of our profession, that we could experience it at any time. But yet, you know, we're talking about human lives. And the one thing on the South Bend Fire Department we care about most and foremost is about human lives, especially our own. And we want to make sure that we are taking the time to show them that not only their physical well-being is the first thing that's important to us, but their mental well-being as well. So we have our peer support team that's really talking to our individuals as well as everyone within the department, offering whatever assistance we can to help us get through this.
Roger, you chief or fire marshal, can you go into more detail about what you're helping out with the investigation? Is it just some extra personnel that you're having around? Are there
We've got some specialized equipment that most fire departments don't have in the state of Indiana. Some photography methods that we use, and we can bring some other things to the table. My agency last year investigated over 800 fires in the state of Indiana, so I've got really good seasoned fire investigators. And last night we had the best people there working, and there's a lot that goes into it because when we have so many and we got a lot of agencies involved, we got the police department, my investigators, the fire department's investigators, there's a lot of information that has to come together. So we're still real fresh into this investigation, and so one of the reasons we don't want to speak is because we want to make for sure we all have the same information and that it's accurate. And so in doing that way we can get a real thorough investigation about what took place that night. So.
Did you say earlier that, to your knowledge, last year 80 people in Indiana died in fire?
Yes, yeah, we had 80 people last year. I think it was like 70 adults and like 10 or 11 juveniles. And this is not a good way to start the year out, you know. And I can't say how proud I am of just not, because the firefighters, whenever they're on the end of a hose line and they know there are people in there, they're working hard. They're putting themselves at risk. You know, you don't know unless you've been on a hose line and people are screaming at you, there's people trapped. You know, it's everything we got to go after it, you know, and that's what they did yesterday. They put everything at it, but it has a difficult outcome. And all the public safety messages Chief talked about is so important. Working smoke detectors, having a way out, talking to your kids, because this stuff is difficult, you know. These guys next shift are going to be back on the engine doing it again, you know, and I can't. They're extraordinary people if you ride that fire engine, because they've had a bad day, but their next shift they're back on that engine doing it again. And very much appreciate the fire department up here.
Speaking of that, I'm sorry for a minute. With the 80 fatalities within a whole year, is this the largest fire rate by fatality? Why?
Unfortunately, no. Last year up in Fremont, I think we had 5 in January last year. We had 4 down in Madison just about a month ago. This doesn't happen often where we have multiple fatalities, but it's just tragic in the communities when this happens. It is.
Going off cover question, for the South Bend area, is this one of the deadliest fires you've achieved in your line of work? How long you've been working here?
Yes, for 37 years, I've been in a lot of incidents, and unfortunately, we've had some fatalities throughout the city of South Bend during that time. But this, to my knowledge, is the most that we've had at one time. But again, I have to go through the archives to try to research it to be accurate. But I don't remember any other time that we've had that many. And in that same regard, I'd be remiss if I did not give the battalion chiefs that was on scene and running that command last night my utmost thanks, and just the professionalism, the mental toughness that it took for them to sustain. Because again, we're all human beings. We're all human beings. Whether we work with each other, whether we work outside of each other, it's still, we're human beings. And when you get caught in a situation that you know you're sending people into, but also seeing what's coming out of it, it's a tough situation to be in. So I applaud them sincerely. I applaud all of our working crews. I was there watching. They were not just standing around. They were working under brutal conditions. But as we'll all get through this together, again, my thoughts and prayers goes out to the family who sustained the loss of the individuals, but also to our firefighters and their families, thanking them for doing what they do every single day. Anyone?
I know you said that contractor fires were commonplace years ago, but now they're building in place. So, what is the city doing about, in lieu of what happened yesterday, what is the city doing about improving buildings, homes, hospitals to prevent it happening?
Well, there are a lot of pieces that go into building codes. There's an international standard that gets updated every couple years, and then we look to adopt those here locally at the state level. And so building inspections happen both locally. We have with the county, we have a partnership with the building department, as well as the state does those kind of inspections. We also have started up a few years ago a rental, the RSVP program, which is a rental safety, forget exactly what the acronym stands for, but there are inspections. Now, we're not able to go, given the staffing bandwidth, we can't go to every rental unit in the city all the time, but it does get to, like most things, you get reports from tenants that there may be safety issues that then our team can investigate. So that's another piece. But some of these houses, this may or may not have been we believe this is a rental unit, but a lot of times they're not necessarily reported. So years ago we worked on a landlord registration program, and that doesn't mean we have 100% compliance with that program. So these are things that we can look at, and we'll see what the cause of this, as the investigators figure out what the cause of this fire is, we'll learn from that and see what we can do to prevent things like this from happening in the future. Yeah.
At this time, no. We have no update at this time. Just that she's hanging in there and she's fighting. So again, we'll keep her in our thoughts and prayers as well. What's up? Yes, he did eventually get discharged last night. He's got some obviously some aches. We're sending him in for evaluation with the ortho to make sure that everything's okay with him. But he's doing pretty good.
Also, just for clarification, so 6 people are involved victims of the fire last night, including the adults.
It was 6 people, 7 with the adult. Yes. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Godspeed.